Exactly. Good evening once again, and welcome to the call. This particular section is targeted to be on data automation with Power Query Editor. Our focus is to teach you how to automate data using Power Query Editor. The power of Power Query Editor cannot be overemphasized. And in this section of the class, we are going to be learning where to get data and how to get data. We're going to be learning how to perform ETL. We're also going to be learning how to manipulate data with Power Query as our tool. In part 2, we are going to be learning more on this section of data automation. In this particular lesson, we are going to be focusing on using a particular data set extracted from Data Science Nigerian Data Bank, and the role of the data is 112,000 plus rows. 112,000 plus rows. This large amount of data will help us to see how we can actually automate the process that we use as data analysts. Well, one may ask, what is data automation? How can we define data automation? So before now, I believe that everyone joining this call are also data analysts. You've been learning data analysis before now. You've understood to a certain degree what data automation, data analytics mean. You've also been able to utilize your knowledge of data automation. So I'd like to ask from the audience what they understand by the word data automation. So please, from the audience, we have about 10 people on the call or thereabouts. So please, if you understood what data automation is, can you kindly unmute and tell us what you understand by the word data automation or automation itself? Please, if you understand what the word automation means, kindly let us know. If you understand what the word data automation means, kindly let us know. Should I call names? What do you suggest? Gospel, Franca, Chi House. I remember this face and the name. Izu, Chichi, Mr. Austin, Joy, and the other persons on the call. Please, what do you understand by the word automation? Anyone? Okay, so let me still be the one to explain it, right? But remember that I'll ask questions intermittently as the session goes on. So I suggest that you please pay rapt attention as it evolves. Automation is the ability to teach the computer to do things for you over and over again. Automation is the ability to teach computer to do the job for you over and over again. So you go to work every day, you return from work, you have a particular pattern or path in which your work follows. When you do it over and over again, it has mastered you, it has recorded in your brain, And by default, you see yourself doing them even without you knowing. An example of automation is what happens whenever you have trained yourself to go to bed around 11 p.m. and wake up around 5 a.m. So no matter what happens, you must wake up around 5 a.m. That is what automation means. So that method, that pattern that you are teaching yourself to always do the work over and over again is what data automation is all about, right? Now, for you to teach computer about the process it must take in order to assist you in delivering a particular job, that is you performing data automation. Do we get the definition correct? It seems like I'm the only one talking to myself here. Please, if you are listening to me loud and clear, I would love you to respond. If you get the definition correct, just say yes. I don't think there's any raise hand feature in this particular.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Austin, for that approval. Now, let us break down the terms of data automation with Power BI. Sorry, with Excel. I don't know, I'm going to Power BI. Data automation with Excel. You know, every analysis follows a particular workflow. You have to get your data. You have to clean your data. You have to use formulas to perform calculations. You have to also use pivot tables to summarize your data. You also have to use macros to record your process, and then you visualize. This is a workflow of every data analyst using Microsoft Excel. From getting the data to cleaning the data in Power Query Editor, where you clean and transform it, use functions and formulas to calculate, use pivot table to summarize, and then record your process with macros and VBA before you now visualize and report. This is a workflow which can be automated when you work with the macros and VBA. So the part 2 of this particular schedule talk section is going to focus on macros and VBA, how we use macros and VBA to record our work process as we are working on Excel. So like I said initially, the data set we're going to be making use of is over 100,000 rows of data. So I'm going to share my entire screen for you to see where I'm going to get such data. Permit me to share my entire screen. The data set is already existing in my folder over here. So let me reduce this guy. So let me get this. I believe you all can see my screen, right? So this is the data sets we are going to be using. Let me load it up in my Microsoft Excel. So this is Microsoft Excel 2021-365. 2021-365. And you notice that this data set comprises of over 100,000 rows of data. So let me go down to the last of it. I've seen it here, 112,037. And it ends in column R. Column R is letter number 18 in the alphabets, right? Letter number 18. So it's 18 columns with 112,037 rows of data. So most times you find yourself working with a large number of data such as this, and you'll be so overwhelmed on how you can clean this data or how you can transform this data. That is where Power Query Editor comes in play. Power Query Editor helps you to easily clean and transform this data to be very much usable for analysis. Now, there are two ways we can launch Power Query Editor. The first method is either by going to a blank workbook. So let me go to a blank workbook. This is a blank workbook now, right? And then you go to the data tab. From this data tab, under the get and transform ribbon control, you see different places and options you can get your data from, either from text/CSV, from the web, from a table or range, from recent sources, or you go to existing connection. Again, you can still go to get data, where you can get from a file such as Excel workbook, text or CSV, XML, JSON file, PDF, or a folder, or even a SharePoint folder, as well as databases like SQL Server databases, Access databases, Oracle databases, PostgreSQL databases, and MySQL databases, etc., etc. So there are many ways you can get data into Excel when you want to work with Power Query Editor. Now we are going to launch Power Query Editor as the first step of getting our data into Power Query Editor. So here on the Get Data option of the Get and Transform Data ribbon, we click on Launch Power Query Editor. So when you launch Power Query Editor, it's going to open a new window that is of Power Query environment. Now you notice here that this particular interface is different from your usual Excel interface, where you are meant to enter your data as supposed to be. You also notice here that the tabs and ribbons are different, quite different from what you already know before now. As well as you noticing that, you also see that it is looking very blank because you don't have any data into this particular environment. Hence, for you to get data into it, we go to a point in the Home tab under the New Query ribbon. You see New Source or Recent Source. New Source or Recent Source. So here we are going to be choosing the New Source option. And then, just like it will tell us to choose from the initial stage we came from, that is from the point where we were asked to get data from Excel file, CSV file, text file, etc., etc. When you click on New Source, then there's a file which you see Excel workbook. So over here, we can click on Excel workbook, and then we will be mandated to look out for where we have stored that data, and there we can launch it into our Power Query Editor. So that's data here, and click import. So with this now, Excel creates connection between the report source to the editor source. Report source to editor source. So with this connection created, it will bring out what is called the navigator pane, a navigator box where we could choose the data we want. So over here, I'm going to choose select multiple items, just this. And then we select the sheet 1, which is the sheet that contains the data. Here you can see it has shown us the preview of our data set. The preview of the data set, and then we click on OK. When this is happening, Power Query will continue evaluating it until it is done to load up into the environment of this particular editor. And there you go. See that the pane that is looking so blank and void is now filled with data sets and so many ribbons. On the first part of the data of the Power Query Editor, you are seeing the tabs and the ribbons. Tabs and the ribbons. Where you see the Home tab, the Transform tab, Out Column tab, and the View tab. Next, on the right-hand side from my right, you see the Query Settings. The Query Settings pane shows you the properties of the query and the apply steps. This Query Settings pane is important because it helps every data analyst to see the steps he or she has taken while making such analysis. Here you will see the name of the query. You also see the steps taken by Excel by default to get this particular data set into the environment. After the query, the pane on the right, you see the data set view, which is just where you are seeing the entire data set as it shows the details in every column and row of the data. Then after that, you will see the next pane, which is on the left-hand side from my own left, which tells you how many queries you have on this particular tables. Now, this particular data set you are working with here is called query. It's called a query, right? It's not called a query because you are working on SQL or because you are working on any other package of analysis, but because you are dealing with Power Query, and Power Query is a powerhouse for editing, transforming, and manipulating our data sets as large as what we have here. Remember we said initially we have 18 columns and 112,000 plus rows of data just at our beck and call. Over here, you can see there are just 4 tabs that helps you to transform data and manipulate it as your own best, right? So this is the first way we can launch the Power Query Editor into our workspace by using the option Launch Power Query Editor, and then by clicking on New Source, File, and then Excel Workbook. When we achieve this, we can rightly start working on Power Query Editor to start our automated processes. Now let us show you the next way you can launch Power Query Editor or use it to transform your data. So I'm going to close this editor view. Someone's mic is on. Can you please mute yourself, please? Someone's mic is on. Please mute yourself. Thank you very much. So now we've seen how we can launch Power Query Editor and get our data into the environment of Power Query Editor. And let's assume that we've opened it in Excel, as we are seeing here on the next workbook. See that we've opened this data in Excel, and this is where we confirm that we have 18 columns and 112,037 rows of data containing both quantitative and qualitative data types with different data formats. And we want to load this up into Power Query Editor for us to start cleaning our data and for us to start manipulating our data. How do we do this? Well, the best practice I always follow is to first of all open a new sheet. And this sheet, I'm going to name it data. Right? Then I'm going to copy the existing file which I have, because I don't have a copy of this in a different workbook. I want to make a copy in the same workbook but different sheet. So I copy this data and paste it in this particular new sheet I have opened here, which I termed data sheets. So I want you to get to the top of it. I wonder how I get down to this point. And I'm very far away from where I'm supposed to be. So let's go up. Fine. So I'll paste the data, and there I go. This has made a copy for me. I have the original data already existing here. And again, I have the one I want to work with as regards Power Query Editor. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to go to Data tab. Remember that this is a workflow that is very much going to be automated in the part 2 of our analysis of our section, because this is part 1. We also have part 2 coming up next week, where you can see how you can use macros and VBA to record all the processes you take in analyzing data, so that you can follow up the same pattern when you have these similar projects coming up over and over again. Now, the sweetest part of it is that most times all of us here work with similar kind of data, with the same column description, the same row values. So we see ourselves working on the same process over and over again. How can we teach Excel to do this for us with ease? That is where macros and VBA comes in. But the workflow is what we are laying the background of today. By next week, we will now lay the background of how to record these processes using the macros and VBA option. So in the data tab, we are going to go straight to the get and transform data ribbon. Over here, you will see the different options mentioned before, and then we are going to choose from table/range. Why are we choosing this? Because we already have this existing for us. So these particular table data types we have here are range of data, right? They are called range of data. And that's because they are not a table. If you want to select this particular data that is in this worksheet, we are going to select a range of column A to column R. But if it was a table, you select just table this or table that. So the option to choose when we have the data in our worksheet is dependent on if the data is in a table or a range, right? So that is the next option of choosing Power Query Editor. So at this regard, we are choosing from table/range. And by default, Excel will select the entire range of data, just as you are seeing here. It says create table. Where is the data for your table? And it shows the range of data for us, telling us that this table that it has made has headers. That is why automatically this is checked. But if yours is not checked, please make sure you check it before continuing. Then you click on OK. With this, Excel has converted this to a table and will load it up by default into Power Query Editor because you chose to use the get data from table/range. Now you see now that the same view we had before when we worked with just launching Power Query Editor, then getting the data from a new source, is also the same view we have as we have gotten the data straight from a Microsoft Excel worksheet. Now, the next thing to do is to start cleaning the data and to start manipulating this data. Our objective is to answer some different questions of interest that we see at the time of the analysis comes to be. So let us define and explain some of the tabs and ribbons we are seeing here in this Power Query Editor. The first tab you are seeing obviously is the Home tab, which is always a tab that explains and helps us to understand the properties that we can see while working on the data of choice. The Home tab contains the Close ribbon, Query ribbon, Manage columns ribbon, Reduce rows ribbon, down to New query ribbon. Here we can perform our different transformations, our different cleaning, and different manipulations. Next is the Transform tab, which houses many of the transformations you will do in Excel. So the Home tab contains something about all the tabs in every package, but each tab has a specific role that it plays in every package of analysis. Here in the Transform tab, you will see different options for table, for any column, text column, number column, date and time column, and structured column. And the next is the Add column tab. Here we see the various options to insert a column into a particular data set. The column might be from example, it might be a custom column. You might even invoke the column by function. You can also use conditional formatting to make sure the column is inserted, as well as we can add column from text, number, date, and time. The next is the View tab, where you can choose the type of views you might want to have in your analysis. You notice here that I have about 3 tabs or checkboxes on the data preview. Now, when I should click on data quality, my Power Query Editor might be looking like your own, because some of us currently here are working with our systems. Although you don't have the data with you, we are trying to see how it looks like while working on Power Query Editor here, right? And some of us too are keen to explore this afterwards. Obviously, we are going to share the data with you. And yes, we are all curious. Because of curiosity, that is why we are here today. So I always love having my column quality shown because it's helped me to preview my data very well to make it easy for me to clean my data set. So I always love having these column quality ticks. That's why every time you see me work with any Power Query view, whether it's in Excel or Power BI, all these views are always there. By default, it helps me to know that there's no need for me to start looking out for blanks or any error or inconsistencies in my data. Because over here, you can see that it gives you the description of every column in your data set, be it valid, having error, or they're empty. You notice them from the column quality being displayed. And by default, obviously, we can see that all the columns we have here, none of them contains error, none of them are empty, and none of them can be redundant. So you see, because of using column quality, it is easier for me to know that this particular stage of looking out for errors, inconsistencies, blanks is done for me because I have the column quality open and previewed in my data view. Again, I can choose to use the column distribution, which tells me how many unique and distinct values I have in each column. How many unique and distinct values I have in each column. You can notice here that we have each column bears its unique and distinct values. Is unique and distinct value. Now, what's the unique value? A unique value is a value that occurs just once in the entire column of data. While distinct value are values that are repeatedly occurring down the column of such data. So you can notice here that some values, some columns have 106 unique values and 282 distinct values, like the revenue column now. You see it has 282 distinct values, 106 unique values, right? Then you can also notice other columns too, bearing their different distribution of data values, telling you that this column is very much made of unique values, while the other is very much made of distinct value. But what you are seeing here, most of our columns are made up of distinct values. Then next, you can also try to check the column profile. Now, this column profile tells you the statistics distributions of each of the column. For instance, let's take the customer age as a prerequisite or an example. You notice that when you click on customer age, Power Query tells us the statistical distributions of all these values in the column. It tells us the even numbers, the odd numbers, the standard deviation, the average, the max, the mean, whether there is zero, non-applicable, unique values, distinct values, if there's any error or empty rows, and how many counts they are in. So you see, this is the statistics of this particular column, customer age. And what statistics? It is just the summary of what you have in that particular column. You might want to also go to unit cost and notice the statistics that it will also give us in this regard. Once again, we have different value distributions and different summary statistics that explains what each of these columns are representing, as the case may be. So you see, using this particular view tab, we can actually preview our data to understand the knowledge behind it, the business behind the data, and it will help us to know better how best to work on each column of the data sets. So I'm going to just uncheck the column profile, which is obviously for us to see the statistical distributions of our data. I'm going to uncheck the column distribution, which shows us how many unique and distinct values we have in each column. But I'm going to leave column quality off because I prefer it being there for me, as it helps me to understand whether there are any empty cells in my columns, any inconsistencies, or any redundancies. So the job has been done for me in easier method. The next thing I'm going to do now is to start cleaning this data, start transforming it, and start making sure that I have all there is in my analysis. So a quick one from what we are just seeing from this preview. So let me quickly collapse this query pane a little bit so you can see clearer. How can we, or what can we deduce that this data is likely made of? What are the metadata of this particular data set? What are the metadata? Now, what I mean by metadata is, what are the components of this particular data, and what does those components tell you about the data? So I'll need someone from the audience to calmly look at this data set very well and tell me what he or she understands from the data and how it can actually be of use in any analysis. What do we see and what does the data tell us? Please, if you can unmute, I'll appreciate your unmute and tell me what you are seeing and also what you understand that this data is telling us about.
The font actually somehow tiny using the phone. So it's very difficult to see what is on your screen because me, I'm using phone. The font is somehow small to me. So I'm not seeing
Okay.
them clearly.
Okay, so we'll pardon you because you're using a mobile device. But for those who are using laptop, can you actually zoom? Can you try zooming and see whether I can see? I think that the way you can pinch your screen to zoom in to see better. All right. Thank you for your contribution, Miss Franca. I believe that's her voice. From what we are seeing here, it's obvious that most persons are using their mobile device. But however, this data set is a sales data. I mentioned that before now. It's a sales data that comprises of every detail of sales, the customer's details, customer's country, their states, and the sales of each of the products. So we can, from this data set, we can actually manipulate it to get extra two tables we can use for analysis. Someone will say how. But by default, you can't actually get this just like that in Excel. But with the help of Power Query Editor, it is possible. Remember, you're working with 112,036 rows of data. So sometimes your Excel worksheet or workbook might lag depending on the size of your PC. Sometimes it might not make it easier for you to flow. Remember, we're talking about data automation, right? Making things easy over and over again. So we can create different tables from this original table. So let us start cleaning data first, and then we can start manipulating it because you must clean first before manipulating. So let me expand the queries pane again. And here I'm going to start by renaming this particular data table or query to become orders table or sales table. So I think sales table is better or sales is better. So to make this happen, I'm going to write.
Sir,
And
please, I
then
want
I'll
to
call
ask a
it
question now.
sales. Okay, what's your question, please? Can go on. Someone said you want to ask a question. Okay, I believe network is the issue now. So let's continue. Please, when you are disposed, you can drop the question on the chat so that we answer it. So After renaming this table to sales, the next I'm going to do is start working on cleaning each column and the case may be. Now I notice that there's no blanks and there's no error because my column quality tells me so, and I believe it. It can never lie to me, right? If there's anything that can lie to you, that thing is not the computer, because computer is programmed in a way that what you gave it is what it gives you in return. It's a giggle, garbage in, garbage out, right? So after observing this, the next I'm going to do is to remove duplicates. This is a workflow of a data analyst when it comes to data cleaning. First of all, you check out for blanks. After you must have understood the data, you check out for blanks, check out for redundancies, inconsistencies down the column, and then next you start removing duplicates. So I'm going to select one of the columns and I'll highlight all by pressing Ctrl A. Under the Home tab on the Reduce Rows ribbon, you click on the Remove Rows. Remember that duplicates occur by rows, right? Duplicates occur by rows. So we're going to choose the Remove Duplicates option. And yes, notice in the apply steps over here on the right hand side of my window, I have removed duplicates. But I've applied removing duplicates. Okay. So next I'm going to start by looking at the data types. If this was normal Excel, we call it data formats. So here I'm going to be looking at the data types. Notice here that this is a date and time data type from the first column we have in our view. And as they bear the dates, the time they bear is just not relevant. It's just not relevant. How do you say so? When we click on the drop down beside it, notice that the time they bear is not relevant because they're all 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, right? They are all 0, 0, so it's not relevant. Hence, we're going to change this from being a date and time data type to being just a date data type. And there are two ways you can do that in Power Query Editor. So that we click on this icon over here. This icon stands for the data type, or we right click and we see change data type, where we can now change it to our desired data type. So we can do this here, or we can still use the Home tab under the Transform ribbon. You will see the data type option over here, where we have the opportunity to also change data type of our choice. Then the fourth option is to go to the Transform tab under the Any Column ribbon control. You also see the data type, where you can also change it to where you want it to be at. So I've shown you 4 places or options you can use to change the data type of your data columns. So I'm going to just click on the icon because that's always the go-to for every one of us who is an of Power Query Editor. Sorry about the network. So I'm back. All right, so we have clicked on this icon and changed the data type to date. Before it was in date and God, what's happening to network? So the next thing to do is to focus on all. Oh, beg now. Why is this in this way? To focus on other columns. So since we have a date column here, do we think that day, month, year is necessary to have? Do Why is network fluctuating? Do we think that day, month, year is necessary for us to have since we have a date column? So this is always interactive. I always interact, whether it's online or physical. Do you think it's necessary for us to have a day column, month column, and year column? I want us to think because all of us here are data analysts.
So can I say something? Yes.
Yes,
Can you hear
please.
me, sir?
Yes, please. I can hear you.
Okay, so for me, it depends on what the analysis is all about. For me, the day column is not needed, especially if we are just trying to um get the monthly trend and yearly trend. And again, too, if the year is just for 1 year, like 20, is it 2017, 2011 that I'm seeing here. If the year is just one, we can also leave it since it's just showing for 1 year. Then the monthly trend, we can just go with the month alone because we already have the this year part now is not needed for me because it has everything. Then bringing everything
Thank
outside,
you very much.
we just need the
I,
month and the year.
because yes, thank you very much, Gospel. I believe that's your voice, right? Or I've misplaced.
It's me, sir. It's me, sir.
So what you are saying is correct. I agree with you, and I believe other analysts in this call also agree. Sorry about the network mess. I think I'm back now. So what you are saying before is correct. It depends on the objective of our analysis, right? What are we trying to get at the end of the day? What is the focus of our analysis? What is our why? What is our how? What's our what? All this plays a role in knowing what to remove in our column and what to leave out in the data set. However, since we say that we're going to get extra tables from this table, we are meant to allow day, month, and year to stay for now in this particular table of cells. So we allow these columns to slide until when we need them to appear in other table of type. So we move on to the next column, which is the customer age. So we are going to leave it as it is. It's okay. So we have agreed with what you said. We're leaving them out, and we are going to be working with what we have because at the end of this analysis, at the end of these transformations we are going to do, we are going to have a date or calendar table, as the case may be, which will help us to get this day, month, and year. So it's relevant that we leave it as it is now and work on the other columns of choice. So the next column of choice is customer age, which is the next column after the year. So about the network issues, it's kind of funny over here. Okay, fine. So let's continue. Customer age is okay and good to go. Age group is okay and good to go. Customer gender are good to go. Country is good to go. Products, order quantity, unit cost, unit price, profits, and then cost is where we are going to be working on. Right? Every other column are good to go, but we need to work on just mentioned now. Order quantity, unit cost, unit price, profit, and cost. You need to change their data type, right? So order quantity is okay as being a number data type. Unit cost should be changed to being a cost, right? You need to change it from what it was to what it should be. So I'm going to click on the 1, 2, 3 sign or symbol beside it, which obviously we said means unit cost. And unit cost is as regarding currency, right? So I'm going to click on that 1, 2, 3, and then we choose currency. And by default, Excel will add Power Query will add 2 decimal places after changing it to a currency. We are going to go to unit price. Now, unit price should be a currency data type too. And when that's achieved, we go next to profits. Click on it, change it. Then the next, we go straight to costs. Click on it, change it to currency. And then revenue, click on it and change to currency. So these are the columns that needs us to change the data types from what it was before to what it should be. They are the revenue column, the cost column, profit column, unit price column, unit costs, order quantity. Then the next is the dates column. So these 5 columns need us to change the data type from what it was before to what it should be. And when we are doing that, Excel is recording our process in what is called M language or mashup language. When you click on the formula bar here, you see the mashup language that Excel has written down. Just the same way you write your functions and formulas in formula bar, Excel Power Query Editor and also Power BI Power Query Editor types in all those steps you have taken in a formula bar. Notice here it says table.transform colon types to remove duplicates. That's the first thing we did, right? Over here, remove duplicates. Then dates, change it to dates. Unit cost, currency type, unit type, currency type, profit into currency type, cost into currency type, revenue into currency type. So this is all the things we've done here by the click and click we are doing. Power Query has typed them down in a code called M language. If you want to see more of M language, you can still go to the view and you see advanced editor. Over here, it will open the Power Query editor syntax that we've done so far. First of all, you see the source telling us that this was gotten from an Excel workbook, and the table of the Excel workbook is table 1. Then we change the type of this particular table in each column: dates, year. So these are the steps we've taken so far in this sales query. Because of all these steps, Power Query has typed them down or coded them down in what is called M language, that's mashup language, right? So this part is not of your headache to bear because Power Query does the job for you. All you need to do is to know where to click and how to click. So now we are done with this part of analysis where we have cleaned this particular data. We've made sure that each data column is coming and bearing the exact data type it should be with. Wonderful. We've also removed duplicates. Great. You've noticed that there's no blanks. Awesome. We've also seen that each column contains valid data sets, valid values in each cell and column of analysis. So we are good to go. What next is to start our manipulation. You need to start manipulating. We need to get static tables from this table. Now, how do we do that? We are going to use one table to achieve all this purpose. We are going to right click on the cells query on the query pane. You will see options such as copy, paste, delete, rename, duplicate, reference, move to group, etc., etc. So our aim here is to copy. Once you copy this, we now come over to this same query pane and paste. Now we have two tables which are cells and cells. We are going to change this second cells table which we have copied and pasted now to a table. Now, why we are changing to customer table? Because we want to have a table that bears just the customer details. Remember what we did was to copy and paste. Now we are going to change sales to customer table. To do that, we start by double clicking again and we name this to be customers. So we call it customers. And what do we need? We are going to remove this date table down to year. We're going to remove these tables, this column in this table here. We're going to remove them, right? So you click on them, you can go to the home tab. On the manage columns ribbon, click on the remove columns and remove columns. They will all disappear. Now you have customer age starting first, customer age group, gender, and country. Then we are not going to tamper with state because we need it, but then we are going to be removing other quantity to the rest. So I'm going to highlight products. I'm going to hold my shift key and also click on revenue. And then I'll go to my home tab, click on the remove column and remove columns. Now this is just what we need for the customers. Customer age, age group, customer gender, country, and state. This is just what we need for this customer data. But then we notice here that in customer gender, we have all caps. All caps. So we need to prepare this data in a form whereby the capital letters will disappear and we have a proper data. So what do? We are going to go to the transform tab, making sure we have selected the column, and then we go to the text column ribbon. Here you see different transformations you can perform on a text column, such as extract, parse. Now you notice that we have only lowercase, uppercase, capitalize each word, trim, claim, add profits, and add recipes. Now I want to right click again on the column header and go to the transform option we have here. Now here you can notice here that more options we are having here is length, JSON, XML. But other ones are there for us, just as we had before in the format option of the text column ribbon. So we can use these options to become proper in this particular column of choice. So I'm going to be choosing the lowercase first, or we can just choose clean as the case may be. So let's try lowercase first. And it changes it to lower cases. Lower cases. Now, this is what we want to get first. Then the next, we are going to do a find and replace, where it will find male and replace it with, right? So let's make that happen. But we are going to be very conscious of what we are doing. If we want to choose some options such as, let's say, upper capitalize each word, let's see what happens here. Awesome. So this has saved us the stress of finding and replacing. Because of clicking on capitalize each word, that's this. Now, if it was normal Excel, what we do is we'll go to proper, right? Use a proper formula, proper function, sorry, to make this word proper as supposed to be. But because we are using Power Query, we first of all have to reduce it into lowercase and then capitalize each word. Now, this makes it possible for us to have a properly organized values in each cell. Now, male starts with capital M, female starts with capital B. Can still come back to the sales query now and apply the same thing we did before in the customers table. Now we have two tables now, sales and customer. So we come over to customer gender. Let's repeat the same process again. Click on customer gender column. Go to the transform tab. Under the text column ribbon, choose format. First of all, lowercase. Then next, go to format again and click on capitalize each word. Now that settles it for you. We have the same view of customer gender, the same way we have it for customers. Now, the next thing we will do here is to add an index column to this particular table we've created so that we can create a link between the customers table to the sales table, right? So in customers now, you're going to create an index column that must start with 0 to 1, 0 to infinity, or 1 to infinity. So I'm going to go to add column tab, and in the add column tab, I'm going to go to index column. Here we have options to choose from 1 or from 0, or we make a custom option choice. So by default, I always love choosing from 1. I just click on from 1. It adds an index column for us, right? Now with this index added, I'm going to drag it to the beginning of the table, so it becomes something like a serial number or customer ID for me, right? So I'm going to drag this guy, just drag it to the end or the starting point of our column and drop it. It becomes what we want it to be. And notice the apply step says reordered columns. Awesome. So here we can double click and then change this from index to become customer ID, right? Or customer key. Let's call it customer key. And we are good to go. So with this customer key now, we can create a relationship between it and the sales table. Remember, this is just one of the tables we are going to create. Let's create the next table because we're doing data manipulation, right? Today we say we're going to get data, going to transform the data, and we're going to manipulate it. We've done getting the data, that's extraction. ETL, extraction. The next is transforming, that's what we are doing now. Once we are done, we perform the load. To manipulate the data to get what we want. So now we are going to still duplicate this sales data once again. So right click on the sales table, copy. Once that has been copied, so let's make sure it's copied properly. After we are done copying, the next thing is to right click on the queries pane and then paste. Now when we paste it, the same thing that happened before will happen again, which is Power Query will name it cells 2 because already there's an existing cells table in this our data set. So I'm going to double click or I'll right click to rename it, or I'll just go to the query settings. Under the properties, you see name. Here I can still change it from being sales to maybe products, because now you're going to focus on products, and hit enter. Now notice that it has changed the title of the query to become products. So you see, I've showed us 3 ways we can rename a query name. We can rename a query either by double clicking to rename, right clicking to rename, or go to query settings properties to rename. So here we are focusing on the particular product. So we are going to delete everything we don't need because we are talking about products, right? Products. So it's supposed to be just products. Hence, we are going to delete every column we don't need. So we don't need date column till around states, right? So we hold our shift key to select from date column to state, go to the home tab, and on the manage columns ribbon, we choose remove columns and remove columns. Someone's microphone is on. Please turn your microphone off. We can hear you. Thank you very much. Fine. So this is a product category. Then the next is to remove every other column. So far we've been doing remove column, remove column. Let's just try to remove other column and see what happens. So what do you mean to remove other column? It means that we are going to select the columns we need. We need product category. We need these three columns. We need product category, subcategory, and product. We need them, right? But we don't need other quantity, unit cost, unit price, profit, cost, and we don't need all those ones. So what do we do? After selecting the columns we need, we go to the home tab once again, and then under the remove rows, remove columns option, we are going to choose the part that says remove other columns, not remove columns this time around, because we've been using this over time. So let's use remove other columns. What does this do? Let's click on this. Do you notice that those columns we do not select, we don't need them anymore? Power Query has removed them for us automatically because we chose remove other columns. And that's because we've already selected the columns we need and then removed other columns. So in this regard now, let us also add serial number to it, that's an index. Under the add column tab, we choose index column, and the index column starts from 1. You see, it's a workflow. So we are going to drag this index column that is here to the beginning of our data table, and we are going to right click to rename it to be product key. Product key. Hit enter. Awesome, right? Amazing. So we have a product table, mass table, all gotten from just a single sales table. The next table we might want to choose now is the calendar table. This calendar table is where we now use the date, the day, the month, and the year. So as usual, we are going to right click on the sales table to do this guy. Network will just be messing up. So we are going to right click on the sales table, copy it, and then come on the empty query pane, right click and paste. This time around, we are going to rename it to become a calendar table. So on the properties pane of the query settings, I'm going to click to delete the name already exists and call it calendar. And I'm good to go. So here, I don't need any customer details. I just need the dates, the day, the month, and the year for myself. So the other columns here are not needed. I'm going to just delete them. We don't need them, right? We don't need all of this. So with this, I'll go to the home tab again, choose the remove columns option and choose remove other columns. Everything disappears. I only have dates, day, month, and year. So with this unchecked, I'll now also add another key for it. This time around, it will be called a calendar key. So I'll go to index column from to the beginning of the table. And here I will call it the date key. Right? So now from just one sales table, we have gotten customers, products, and calendar. Congratulations. It's not easy, right? We have gotten this entire kind of data as the case may be. Because of what? Data manipulation. we need to go back to the sales table. And when we go back to sales table, we are going to remove anything that does not concern sales in this particular table. Anything that does not concern sales, you don't need it here. You need to remove all of them, right? We might allow the date table, date column to slide, but we're going to remove day, month, year. I go to my keyboard after selecting this column. Let's select again day, month, year. I go to my keyboard and press delete. They are all gone. Then the next, I'll down to products and delete from my keyboard. So here I no longer need to start going to home tab, remove columns or remove other columns. I'll just click delete on my keyboard and it's all out. So I'll leave date, other quantity, unit cost. Because this is a sales table. So we don't need every other table that we don't actually need. We don't need anything concerning customer here. We don't need anything concerning products here. It's other quantity. Columns we need in this analysis. We don't need any other column. So here we have made a manipulation of our data table to get extra 3 tables. 1 on sales, 2 on customers, 3 products, 4 calendar. Before so we can get other tables that we want. The last thing we want to do here is to merge or append, as the case may be. So why do we merge? Why do we append? When we merge is when we see that this particular query and the other query have something in common, or we want to build relationship between them. So if we have 7 columns per se, like we have now in this sales table, we have 7 columns, and we want to have like extra 1 more table, 2 more table, 3 more table. We'll use the merge query. But when we want to add it underneath, let's say as we stand now, we have about 112,000 rows of data, and we want to add more and more and more under it. So from 112,000, we have 113,000, 114,000, as the case may be. That's where we let's like I was saying before, sorry about the network issues. MTN is messing up this night. We have created 3 extra tables from just 1 table using Power Query Editor as a aside what it needs. The sales table contains everything concerning sales. As you can see here, the customers table contains everything that concerns customers. The products table contains everything that concerns products. while the calendar table contains everything that concerns dates. So in this way now, we have performed data manipulation. The next thing we need to do is to load up our data sets. On the next step of our class, which is the part 2, we are going to see how we can merge and append these queries and also model this data in Power Query Editor. Sorry, not Power Query, but so let's close and load our data because we are done with extraction. Now we want to load. We are done with extraction. We are done with transformation. We're also done with manipulation. Now we are going to load. On the next class we are going to have, which is the part 2 of data automation with Power Query, we are going to see how we can model data using the Power Pivots in Excel. The same thing you for us to load our data, we need to go to the Home tab and then go to the Close ribbon, and we are going to choose Close. If you say close and load, it will load the only Power Query view. But if you say close and load to, it will ask you which place or which area or which range do you want it to load to. So if you only use close and load, Power Query will just load it up and store it on itself without giving you access to it. So anytime you need it, you come to it. But when you choose close and load to, you have options to choose whether to allow you to hold it in its bank or load it up in a particular table in Excel. So we choose close and load to, and you notice the option that comes for you here. It says import data. Select how you want to view this data in your workbook, as a table, as a pivot report, as a pivot chart, only create connection, or the rest. Now, you notice here that when you choose as a table, it means that Power Query will load this as a table for it, right? Then if you say pivot table report, that means you don't want to have this as a table in Excel. You want it to just be for pivot table report. That's another option. Next option is pivot charts, which means you don't actually want to use this for anything else aside for charts. Then the next is only create connection, which means that you don't want to see this in any Excel worksheet. So we are going to be choosing the table, and we are going to allow Power Query to load it up in a new worksheet. Then always check this option that says add this data to the model. We combine together to make sure that this data set will be added to a model, because we are going to be using it for data modeling, as the case may be. So here we click on OK. So the option we chose was table, new worksheet, and then Power Query loading up the data. As you are seeing here, in the queries and connection, we now have about 4 tables existing in our data sets. Excel is loading up. We have all the tables loading up each value initially and customers table to load up. Fine. Notice what's happening here. So Excel is loading up every table we have created in Power Query Editor. Are you seeing this? So we have sales table, which is this, customers table, products table, and calendar table. Now, this has been created because we use Power Query Editor to extract, transform, load, extract, transform everything concerning calendar. So you see how we have used Power Query Editor to perform this particular analysis. We have seen that here we can actually transform data in Power Query Editor with ease. These processes we've taken, this workflow, will be very hard to come by in Excel if you are not patient. Because we are patient enough, this is why we can be able to load up this as easy as possible into Excel workbook. So now we can start working with the data at will and also perform any analysis we want to perform using the pivot table or any other kind of tool we wish to use in Excel. So over here too, you can see that we have an extended tab called Table Design and Query, right? Table Design and Query. If you click on Query, you will see that we have options for the query, either to edit query, properties, delete the query, refresh the query, duplicate the query, append the query, or merge. So at this point in our class, we are happy that we have been able to transform our data using Power Query Editor. We have seen how wonderful it is for us to carefully get our data. And after that, we now sheets. This is a very wonderful workflow for every data analyst. On our next class next week, like we said, we are going to see how we can model this data in Power Pivot in this same Excel workbook. Because Excel has so many things you don't know when it comes to analysis. So a lot of us, we want to jump into different tools for analysis, but obviously Excel can become your go-to tool for anything data analysis you want to perform. So I would like to take your questions at this juncture to know where you get confused or at the point where you need assistance in understanding what happened. So I'll take your questions now, please. We have Gospel, we have Chicks, Shirley, Faith, Austin, Gospel, Tochukwu, Chihouse, Aneke, Joy, and some other persons who network has also kicked out. If you have any question, please, you can.
Hello, good evening.
Recording the call. Yes, you can always go back to it if need be. Yes, please. It's recorded. Okay, Tochukwu, you are muted. Can you please?
Yes, thank you. All right, so mine is just that I came in behind time. So I wanted to know how we got into the Power Query editor. Every other thing I saw from when I joined, I was very clear. You were very detailed in your explanations. I was just
The line is
lost.
breaking. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes, it's better now. Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm asking that when I joined them behind time. So, but everything that you explained when I joined was very clear. So my only confusion was how we got into the Power Query editor so that we could start the extraction, the transformation, and the loading.
Very,
Did
very
you get my
sorry. My
question?
network is kicking me out front and back.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Or do you prefer I type the question?
Yes, please. If possible, please do so. I'm
All right.
having a
Okay.
fluctuation of
Okay.
network, so your voice is
It's all
coming
right.
and going.
Okay.
Please, you can type the question, sir. Who else has a question aside Mr. Tochuku on the call?